Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. Seth here with Arc and Chip Fabrication. Today we got a quick little project I want to share with you guys. It's kind of neat, unique, and what we're going to be doing. I don't know as though I've seen anybody else do it. I know there's probably a few different ways of doing what we're going to do, but this is how I'm going to do this one because I have the materials to do it, and it'll be pretty quick, make quick work of it. So let me spin you around, I'll show you what we got going on, and we'll get started. Alright, so what we're doing is these are some antique doorknobs that are actually for a customer. This is actually for my day job. We replaced a closet door, a 24-inch swinging closet door. We opened the wall up almost full width of the closet and are putting in two 60-inch bifold doors. But the house has a lot of original character. Pretty much all the doors and the hardware and everything in it are original. So she asked if there's any way we could reuse these handles for it. So I said sure. And so the way I'm going to do that is, this is the original shaft that ran through the mortised latch assembly inside the door. So it's square. Excuse me. These handles would thread up into it. Takes a set screw. It tightens down onto the flat of the shaft. And that's what would lock the handle onto the center shaft. And then there was a square hole mortised in the latch assembly, so when you turn this it'd open the latch. So what I'm going to do for this, the square shaft is actually threaded, so the threaded portion is 3/8 by 20 thread per inch. I don't have my 4-jaw chuck is too big, it won't bite this small of a shaft. I mean, it's tiny, I didn't even measure it. It's, let's see. It's 280 thousandths. So my 4-jaw chuck's just too big, it won't bite this small of a piece. So I have a piece of stock. I'm going to turn, thread the outside of it for this 3/8 by 20 thread per inch. And then I'm going to bore it, and I'm going to counter bore it. So I'm going to make two plugs 1/2 inch long. I'm going to counter bore it 1/4 of an inch halfway through, and then I'm going to bore it to be tapped the rest of the way for 832, which is your common hardware screw. So like what your normal, what a knob would be mounted in your kitchen cabinets with. And so then that way we'll just have a little 1/2 inch chunk. We'll thread up into the handle, tighten the set screw on it, and then that way we can just take this knob and run the hardware screw up behind it and tighten it onto the door. So that's the game plan. That's what we're going to do. I have just about everything I need. I didn't have, so for an 832 screw, machine screw, you're supposed to have a number 29 drill bit. I don't have a number 29. A number 29 drill bit's 0.136. What I do have is just a smidge bigger. This is a 9/64, which is 140. So it's only 4 thousandths larger. I don't think it's going to make much of a difference at all going into steel. So let's get you spun around. I got the lathe all set up, ready to go. We're going to cut these, thread it, drill it, tap it, part them off, and it'll be a wrap. So let's get to it. Alright, so we got a piece of stock set up in the lathe. It's an old bolt I've cut some bits out of before too. It'll work fine for what we're doing. Got it set up, so we're going to turn this down to 3/8 and then thread the outside, and then we'll drill it, counter bore 1/4 inch, a little oversized, and then we'll thread that 8/32 and part off two pieces 1/2 inch long that are threaded on the outside and halfway threaded through on the inside. Let's get turning. stop it, just get a measurement. I know I'm well over, probably better side of ½ inch. Look at that. Actually, this will focus. Might not focus. Actually, right at ½ inch. Yep, looks like it's not going to focus. Sorry about that, guys. But yeah, I'm right at ½ inch. So I want the diameter to be 375 thousandths. So that means I got 125 thousandths to go. Change to taking only a 10,000th step to cut because we're getting so small. I don't want it to be deflecting too much. So we've taken off 105 thousandths. Right now we are at 395 thousandths. So we want 375. We're going to take another 10,000 step to cut, and that should be it. This will be, it says a little bit of heat in it. It's not too hot, so it will shrink it just a smidge, but with how small it actually is, it won't shrink much because there's not much mass here for it to shrink. There's a percentage that steel shrinks, there's a percentage that cast iron shrinks. All your different metals have a different shrink percentage from when you're like casting, that sort of thing. But with steel, with how hot this is, it's really not that hot. It's warm. But again, given the diameter, it's not going to shrink enough to even worry about it. So let's take one more pass, and then we'll switch cutter over to a threading cutter, and we'll start threading. Thread cutting, single point thread cutting insert. Get mounted up. What I'm going to do, I'll tell you what, I'm going to back myself out on this camera here and show you how I set up to cut threads. Alright, so I have my compound set to 29.5 degrees, 30 degrees, whatever you want to call it. As I'm cutting the threads, every time I go to feed in further, I'll feed in on my compound. That way it's only cutting on the front half of this bit. The other thing that I'm going to be able to do is I'm going to set my cross slide, so I don't bump this. I'm going to set this cross slide at 0, turning it in. And the reason I'm doing that is when I come up to that shoulder and I stop my feed, I can back my cross slide out. When after I've run back, then I can turn it back into 0, and I'll know that it's right on where it's got to be. The only issue is with this lathe, I don't have a thread cutting dial for this lathe. Typically on the right side of your carriage there'd be a threading gauge. Basically it's a dial that usually has 8 hash marks in it. 4 of them are numbered, 4 of them are not. The reason being, with the gearing in the head, with this lead screw, for every tooth on the lead screw, or every pitch, whatever you want to call it, if I were just to engage it on any one, it's not going to line up with the threads that I'm already cutting because of the gearing that's in the head. So a thread cutting dial allows you to watch at what point in the gearing this lead screw is turning, and when you land on a line or a number, depending on the thread count you're cutting, you can engage it on that line or number, and your tool will line up with the threads you've already started cutting. I can't do that yet. I'm probably going to look at building one because they're really handy to have. But for the time being, I'm going to run in, I'll back the tool out and stop the lathe, and then I'll reverse the lathe, and it'll power back, and then I'll refeed in and keep cutting. Kind of clunky, it's a pain in the neck, but unfortunately that's my only option at this point for threading on this lathe. So, well, let's get to it. Alright, so I reduced the chuck speed a fair bit because I want to be able to have decent control over this. That's why the lathe probably sounds a little different. It's running through the gear reduction. But now, engage this and let's see. Very first thing, always do a scratch pass. And we'll check that with our thread pitch gauge. Make sure the threads are lining up. Alright, and that is in fact on 20 threads per inch. That looks good. We can keep going with it. Reverse the lathe. I apologize, I didn't realize the battery died on my camera. Had to take a few more passes on this, but now the knobs thread up on there nice. Good and smooth. So next step, we're ready to drill this for the small size for the 8/32 tap. So we're going to be using a or 8/32 tap, 8x32 tap. We'll be using a 9/64 drill bit for that. Let's get that put up in here. Alright. Actually, drill bit out. Put this tap in here, and alright, so I'm going to hand spin the chuck and get this tap fed up in there. So to do that, I'm going to loosen my tailstock. Back a little bit, run it out. There we go, disengage that. I'm going to hold just a little bit of pressure in on the tailstock and spin the chuck by hand and let it draw that tap up in there. That's that. Good deal. Now, let me take a 832 machine screw. Oh yeah. That's how we like it. Perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and part ½ inch of this off. I was going to back cut part of this, so it was only biting by 1/4 inch, but This is threading easy enough, I'm not going to even mess with it. So, and plus I'm running out of time. So I'm going to part off 1/2 inch of this, run the tap back in there, finish tapping it, part off the next half, and that'll be it. Alright, so here's the finished product. We got our 2 threaded adapters to go from 3/8 20 to 8/32 for hardware screws. And these thread nicely right up into these doorknobs. So I'm going to go ahead and get these assembled, put in the set screws, and that is a wrap for this video. These will be ready to be installed on the bifold doors tomorrow. So hope you enjoyed this little video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Feel free to leave comments, suggestions, tips, questions. And if you like what you saw and you want to see more, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I'm going to try to keep getting stuff out to you guys. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.